that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Live from New York, it's the biggest show in legal tech, and you are here for TECHNOCAT Live. I have the honor of being here with Brian Meegan of ProSearch, and we are going to rock your world a little bit because, hey, it's 5:30 at Legalweek, and why not?
Yes, why not? Why not?
So,
Why not?
Well, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. We're in this room together with 7,000 or so of our favorite friends. How are you liking the show so far? What's been interesting to you?
So I love this show, and I love that we're far past COVID.
Yes.
And that people are a lot more open, because as a community, we need to be getting together more often. We have a lot of problems we need to solve. And I have to compliment you, first of all, because I think you've opened up doors for us that previously I think people were a little afraid to let their hair down on social media. And that
Or their sparkles out.
or their sparkles. And I think what has achieved is people are now talking about our business on social media. I think that has changed a lot for us.
Well, it feels a lot more authentic. And yes, that means occasionally there's kitty cat memes, but also it means we're talking about the real challenges. We're looking at the future. And I know you have some real big ideas about what the future may hold.
Oh, I do. I think about the future a lot. I started as a very young man working on mainframes.
Oh,
That's how old I am.
Well, I mean, cloud computing brought us full circle.
It brought us full circle. And, people are communicating in a different fashion. And the fact that we as an industry were afraid of social media, when we see how people are communicating now with chat, I like to call the collaboration tools alt tools, alt rock.
They are.
Right? And so I think that we're going to see a lot of change in our industry. We need to find a better way to provide review platforms so that attorneys can look at the modern data in a more meaningful way. And I think, when I look at Reveal, I remember we were early adopters of MixLP.
Oh, yeah.
We thought that was okay, that's something special. So as an e-discovery provider, we're not a software provider. Yep. We rely on you, we rely on others.
Well, and that's mutual. We stay in our swim lane. I don't want to do service because then it detracts from my ability to focus 100% on building the type of software you need. And I think that that's a better symbiotic relationship.
No, I think you're right. And I think the fact that you and your team interact so much with the service providers, yes, everybody sees the parties on social media, but what they don't see is those meetings. And I've been in those meetings, and they're very powerful. And I think you take that information, and you've been, according to my team, we recently looked at some of the new innovations that your team has worked on, and they're very impressed. So excited. So I am excited about the future. I mean, I just think about the young people coming up and how they communicate, and I just can't wait to see what our industry is going to look like in 3 years, 4 years, and 5 years.
Well, it's getting so much faster. I feel like when we added the E2E discovery, it took a little while. There was slow adoption. I feel like we're moving at a faster pace now to deal with this velocity of new information. We're being forced to go even faster.
No, I think you're 100% right. In 2005, our biggest challenge is how are we going to process Lotus notes?
Which is still the stuff of nightmares, don't get me wrong.
But now when we look at generative AI and everything that's associated with that, it's so exciting. And yes, there's a lot of problems that have to be worked out. There's a lot of challenges, but it's coming.
It is.
You cannot stop that train.
Well, I think we have a whole generation of digital natives that have grown up, with a laptop in their hand, dealing with technology. And I think that's going to help accelerate how we're developing solutions, because there's people that are just so much more tech conversant, even if they went to law school, because maybe they don't like math and statistics.
No, I think you're absolutely right. There was a joke that a comedian said once, and people always complain about, and I'm not going to do the joke justice, but I'm going to paraphrase the joke, that people complain about flying. And he said, you're complaining about flying, you're sitting in a comfortable chair 30,000 feet above, and you're going to be somewhere in an hour and a half. And I think we're doing the same thing right now, but I think we have to not be afraid to look at things differently, because for so long it's been about email and about documents. pretty soon we're going to have to start challenging what a document really is. What is a document?
Oh, yeah. So I had a panel with Esther Birnbaum and Kristen Sunderman, so from Interactive Brokers, and with Freddie Mac and Martha Lukes from McDermott, Will & Emery. And Martha said, it's data, not docs. The doc is dead. And was adamant about it. And you know what, in thinking about it, like, how are you going to put generative AI into a document? How are you going to put a Slack channel effectively in a document? We really do need to start thinking about next. I'm hearing that refrain more and more, like, all right, enough, next.
You're absolutely right. And when we think about documents, we think about custodians. Is something that was generated by AI, is that a custodian? Who's responsible for that data that's being produced?
Well, who owns it?
Yeah.
Does ChatGPT own it? Do I own it? Is it tied to the source data, which maybe has some sort of IP tied to it? Like, it's perplexing.
No, it is perplexing. And you know what, we talk about ChatGPT, and there's a lot of people who will say, oh, it's not perfect, it's not great. That is not the only tool. I get so many emails every day, different companies coming up with new solutions. And I think ALM had an article last week. And
Maybe, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they were talking about now they're going to start, a lot of law firms are going to start hiring analytics departments because they're able to leverage AI. Yeah, it's not perfect, but is review perfect? I remember in the early days of predictive coding.
Oh, well, when people would be like, oh, it's only 98% precision and recall. And it's like, the humans were like sub 60%, right?
Exactly. That's my point. Exactly. Yeah, and now nobody talks about precision and recall. You can just produce whatever you want to produce, and nobody questions what you produce. And I think with generative AI and some of the alt data that we're dealing with, I think we're going to start seeing a resurgence of, how are you going to validate that data?
100%. And the thing I keep telling people is, whether you decide you want to do anything incorporating generative AI into your tech, is one question, but it's not the only question. What are we going to do in terms of evidence and when we're dealing with this? Because if my nephew who's 7 and my grandma who's 80 are both using generative AI, you can bet your clients are too.
Oh, yes.
And there's going to be litigation. So how are we going to handle that? How do we authenticate? How do we validate? How do we render it so it's something that makes sense to someone?
Yeah, I mean, truly, what is evidence when we start using all that generative AI? And we also have to think about the future of work. When people talk about the future of work, it makes me a little bit angry. They talk about hybrid, in office, or remote. That is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to that. So I think we're going to see people communicating outside of the norm. As an example, you have an email address and you have your work cell phone.
Oh, yeah.
But if you want to talk about something a little bit nefarious, well, are you going to use your personal phone? Because salespeople are not showing up in doctors' offices today to have those meetings. So are they using their work phone? Is it discoverable? So I think it's going to become more challenging for providers. It's going to be more challenging for the legal.
We all know the answer. Everything's discoverable.
Everything's discoverable.
Is it admissible? Nah, but it's discoverable.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I'm excited, Kat. I really am. And I'm excited people are talking about this week. I'm excited that people like Steve Goldstein he's been posting every day some really cool stuff, asking questions, and people are responding to that. And I'm just excited to be in the industry today. But we need to come together more. And I think you've done a good job of that. David Cowan has done a great
100%.
job of that. And so hats off to you guys. And we want to continue to.
Well, hats off to you guys for joining in. I've had the pleasure of dragging you out when I put the cat signal up more than once.
I do follow the cat signal, yeah. No, and I think it's great, even with Law Rocks, bringing law firms into the foray of what you're doing and connecting them with our corporate clients, because there's been a sea change over the last 10 years where law firms had a lot more say in what the selection of providers.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And that's been sort of taken away. And we need law firms.
Yes.
We do need them. And so bringing them back into the fray and bringing them into what our conversation, I think is important. It'll make them a lot more valuable to corporate counsel, I think.
Well, I think what I've seen this legal week more than others is that it's a collaborative approach. So it's not vendor, corporate, law firm. It seems much more like, hey, we're discussing these challenges together, and we're, maybe it's co-opetition, maybe it's co-innovation, but it's a lot more collaborative than it's felt even like last year.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I think it's night and day last year from this year. But it was, I could see the seams.
It wasn't bad last year,
No.
but it's so much better.
Yeah, and I think what happened too, when somebody was mentioning earlier, we should do a documentary on all the e-discovery players over the past, since 2005, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But when I look at last year, and there's a new group, but a lot of the players in this new group have been around for a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see that right now, and how we're really trying to support one another. Because look at it's not easy what we're trying to achieve today. These problems we're trying to achieve today are a lot more complex than 2005.
I mean, it used to be like, how do I process Lotus notes, and how many documents do I put in a batch to emulate a banker's box? Like, it was like some really silly little challenges, and now it's much more nuanced.
It really is. And when I saw your colleague Steve Rapp this morning, it took me back to when Clearwell first came out. And Clearwell was the first tool that actually offered some type of analytics. And of course, Steve was there at the forefront.
As he likes to remind me every chance he gets. Back at Clearwell.
I can imagine. But and so we were early adopters of Clearwell when I was in a company called Onsite. And God, that was a lifesaver.
It was so much different because it was basically just linear brute force. That was your only choice.
That was it. And we needed to provide better technology, and they came through with it. And obviously other companies followed suit. But now, more than ever, we have these big challenges, and we're still trying to shove them in to the way we do business with you.
It's a little square peg, round hole sometimes, a little bit.
Yes.
But you know what? I think the conversation of this doesn't quite work, should we change it, is coming up more. Yeah. And that's the first step. So.
No, I think it is. And we have a little bit of time, but you can see the alt data volumes growing like crazy right now. Oh my gosh. It's crazy.
Well, but I mean, I think about my morning today. I sent like probably 15 WhatsApp messages, a couple text messages. I checked my Slack. I was in email. I was posting on LinkedIn. I was using a third-party app to edit my video for LinkedIn. Like, how many data sources was that before 8 a.m.?
Oh, it's crazy. I was getting a demo from ONA recently. They were showing me their product. And when you open up the tool, you see all the possible data sources that tool can collect from. I thought, holy cow. And I knew of all those data sources, but to see them in one place and just hearing you rattle off 6 or 7 at one time.
Well, I don't even do like the ephemeral one. I'm not doing Signal or Telegram, but like, that's a lot of data sources. Well, we've come to a critical juncture, my friend. These are a sprint and not a marathon, and it is time for me to ask you for your mic drop moment. What is the one kernel of wisdom, one thing about you, one bit of something awesome you want everyone that's listening here or virtually to take away from this conversation?
I want people to be open to change. Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm definitely a senior citizen, and when I hear people,
but you rock as much as a younger citizen.
I do my best to do that, and I think it's because I never want to be called a curmudgeon. And so, don't be a curmudgeon. Be open to change.
I approve of that statement. No curmudgeon. No curmudgeons allowed.
No curmudgeons allowed. Yeah, that's awesome. My advice to our community.
I love it. Well, this has been live from New York, TECHNOCAT Live with Brian Meegan of ProSearch, and mic is dropped. We are done. I'm signing off for the day, and thank you again, Brian.
Thank you.
Absolute
Wonderful.
Pleasure.